Hello.
So Harayim Tov.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, Rabbi. Ricky will be a little late. Her appointment's running late. Whatever. But she'll be on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Rabbi Papi. Thank you so much because I thought.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm having a lot of problems.
Oh, okay, good. At least the
Please wait a
problems are
moment.
not on
Please
my
wait.
end.
Please, I can't hear.
So who among us is here?
There we go. All right. Sorry, I was having a lot of problems with my computer. Let me just call up all the texts. Wait a moment.
Get your sticks together. That was a joke, Rabbi. It's okay.
One. Okay.
Can you hear me, Rabbi? It's okay.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. And what about you, Cal? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you
Okay,
hear
I just want to be sure at least it's we're connected.
Okay. Yeah, Ricky will be a little late, Rabbi. She's running a little late.
I saw Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte should be connecting.
A big mess with my iPad. I had to call the office.
Better the iPad than the eyes.
How true. Anyway, Ezekiel, is that what we're doing?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
we were back to the Parsha.
No. We're through Breshit. We're doing the Haftarot.
Okay.
And if you want, we can also continue doing the
Nobody would have any problem as long as you stop when you get to Sefer Devarim because you've done Haftarah from Sefer Devarim as instead of the Parsha several times. But the rest of the year, you probably haven't done that, so that's sort of a nice twist.
Yeah, I thought that would be fun. Let me just no.
By the time we're done, we'll have fish pain from one end to the other.
Yeah. Okay. Is everybody here?
I don't know about everybody, but we've got 5 people here.
Yeah.
Ricky will be there.
Yeah, Ricky, I don't know about Maddie and Shell.
Well, somebody just stood up, I think.
Whatever. We're going to get started because I'm sorry, just
We have to stick together. That was another joke.
yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, Lordy.
I think the first one sailed right past you, Ever.
I didn't hear the first one.
That was the first one.
Yeah, okay. All right. So just very, very quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it is the first time that we're looking at Sefer Yechezkel, at least on this go around of the Parshiot. And we have a statement already in the Talmud that points to the structure, just a little bit of a background on the structure of Sefer Yechezkel. Of course, Yechezkel was among the first exiles to Babylonia in 593, 592. What? I don't remember what.
597.
586.
He went into exile in 597.
Structure.
Hashem first appears to him in a prophecy in 593.
Yeah. But he is exiled first with the nobles and the leaders, the king, to Babylonia. The destruction of the temple will take place in almost 10 years later, in 586. So the rabbis already recognized the structure of the book. This is part of a longer discussion on the order of the books, um, and they say here, Mikti Yeshayahu Kadem Yirmiyahu v'Yechezkel, since Yeshayahu chronologically comes before Jeremiah and Yechezkel, Liktamei Lishaya Beresha, let Yeshayahu come first, which is in fact how we organize the books. But at least in this rabbinic, Kevan Dimlachim Sofei Chorbana, since the Book of Kings concludes with the destruction of the temple, the Yirmiyah Kulei Chorbana, and most of Sefer Yirmiyahu, these are general statements. Most deals with the destruction. V'Yechezkel Reshe Chorbana v'Sefer Nechemta. The beginning part of the book deals with destruction, but the end deals with comfort. V'Yeshayahu Kulei Nechemta, and Yeshayahu is almost exclusively dealing with comfort, except certainly for the first chapter, Chazon Yeshayahu, which we read before Tisha B'Av. None of these are clear-cut distinctions, but they're capturing the overall structure of the book. And so he says, Samchinin Chorbana lechorbana. We connect destruction to destruction. So we have the end of Malachim, then we have Yirmiyahu, and then Yirmiyahu to Yechezkel, and then Yechezkel to Yeshayahu. But again, that's not how we organize them today. There's a long period of deciding what made it into the Bible and how they would be organized. And of course, the Christian Bible organizes it differently. We have Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. And for the Christian Bible, the Nevi'im come last because they are pointing to Jesus, because the New Testament begins with the Gospels, but it's another story. So again, just to understand Sefer Yechezkel, the opening chapters 1 to 24, are a condemnation of the sins of Judah and Jerusalem. Indeed, the prophet sees the history of Israel from the Exodus to his day as a series of rebellions against God. God's punishments are now inevitable and at hand. It's not a happy opening to the book at all, and sometimes Yechezkel can be quite scathing. By the time you get to chapter 25 and 32, he's expressing God's anger toward the surrounding nations and what's going to happen to them. And then, from where our Haftarah comes from, is chapters 33 to 48, which are oracles of hope and consolation for the most part, and that includes a vision of the new temple and its service at the end of the book, chapters 40 to 48. The book itself is rather challenging. As I was reading a little bit of, the introductions in Greenberg, who wrote the commentary for Anchor Bible, and in Fishbane on the Haftarot, there are a lot of differences between the Masoretic text and the Septuagint. There are issues with the Masoretic text, and it's a complicated book. Not always as poetic as, say, Jeremiah and Yeshayahu, but still very powerful, and very much Yechezkel was a Kohen. And much of his book reflects the language of the priestly materials, although what caused tremendous consternation among the rabbis, there were a lot of differences. And probably one of the important elements of Yechezkel is that we learn about the development and the different approaches, more the development of Judaism in the period of the Bible. So let's just begin with the beginning of this chapter. And it should also be pointed out that we are picking up in the middle of a chapter 37, verse 15. But the first half of this chapter is one of the most famous sections in the Bible. It's the incredible vision of the Valley of Dry Bones, which has served as so much inspiration It's really a message of a restoration. It's the resurrection of the Israelite people as the prophet sees these dry bones just lying in the valley, and suddenly they come together, and there's sinews that appear on them and flesh, and God breathes life into them, and once again they live. So let's just begin with the opening section. Mi rotze likra, who'd like to read?
I'll read.
Okay, thanks, Carol.
The word of Hashem came to me, and you, man, take for you one stick and write on it, belonging to Yehuda and the Israelites associated with him. Then take one stick and write on it, belonging to Yosef, Ephraim's stick, and all the house of Israel associated with him. Join them together, one to one, for you as one stick, so that they become one in your hand.
Okay, so first of all, what is Yechezkel being told to do? Not a trick question, just what's he being told to do?
Put two sticks together, having written on them the names of Yehuda and Ephraim, or
Which refer to Yehuda as the
Israel. Or Yehuda is Judah,
Well, they're both Judah.
the southern kingdom, and Yosef is the northern kingdom.
Right. So this is long after the destruction of the northern kingdom, of course, but part of the vision was the restoration of Israel with both kingdoms. Now, what else is very powerful about this notion of these different tribes coming together? Yosef and Yehuda and Binyamin, and of course, all of the people that are associated with Yosef, they refer not just to the tribes, but also to
The ones who started them.
Yeah, the ones who started them. Yeah, all sons of Jacob. And of course, what do we have in our parasha? The reconciliation. Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers, and we have the reconciliation of the brothers. So that past reconciliation in the parasha becomes a wonderful reason to use this prophecy of restoration, where it's their descendants and the nation once again comes together in unity. So he's engaging in a symbolic action, which we'll come back to in a moment. But it should also be pointed out the unusual language that appears throughout Yechezkel. Vahi davar Adonai Elai lemor, God's word came to me saying, Va'ata then Adam, and you, and they translate here man, which is what Ben Adam means, but it's a little bit more.
Well, no, it means person. If you're going to be politically correct, that's what it means.
Absolutely. And you will see that throughout this, I use son of man, I use person, I use human being. But yeah, because Carol, would you read the footnote here? Literally.
Literally, son of man. However, Ben or bat with a noun merely indicates status in bar mitzvah, son of the commandment, that is, a person liable for the commandments. Also, ben mavet, literally son of death, that is, a person liable for the death penalty.
Yeah, and there are many in our Birchot HaShachar. We talk about thanking God, or at least in the conservative and Masorti Sidurim, we have Shasani Ben Chorin, who has made me a free person, but it's Ben Chorin, a child of freedom, or we also have the feminine form Bat Chorin. So it's a status.
But more important, it's also B'nai Yisrael. In other words, the way you say Israelite is B'nai Yisrael.
Exactly.
That's in other words, when you say, but in other words, Ben Adam means the son of Adam, not the son of man.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, let's take it because it's a very
child of Adam is better yet.
Pardon me? Well,
If
it's
I'm going to be politically correct, I'm going to say the child of Adam, meaning
right.
also of Eve, because Adam couldn't have a child all by himself.
Right. But just go ahead, Carol, to read Fishbane's comment.
Fishbane
Fishbane.
on the NJPS translation, mortal.
Yeah,
This
so I'm
phrase-
using, by the way, for this, I'm using Greenberg's translation from the Anchor Bible. He uses man. NJPS uses mortal. Go ahead.
This phrase recurs repeatedly in the book and frequently as here, and you, O Son of Man. The phrase emphasizes the mortality and earthiness of the prophet, who at his commission beheld God transcendent in the heavens.
Yeah, if you remember the opening chapter of Yechezkel, his call is the vision of the divine chariot that he sees reflected in the river Chabar. So it's totally this transcendent vision, and yet, certainly the purpose in this book is like mortal, God, the immortal, if you will, or the boundless, infinite, is dealing with the finite human being. Um, and let's just take a look at what the traditional Mefarshim say here on Ben Adam. This is on the first appearance in the book, in the second chapter of Yechezkel. First of all, Rashi. Go ahead.
Okay, and he said to me, Son of Man, etc. He calls Yechezkel Son of Man because he saw the chariot while walking among the heavenly heights and involving himself with it like the angels, as if to say, there is no one here of woman born but this one. So did a man explain this to my rabbi, and he thus pleased him. I hold, however, that he called him Son of Man only so that he should not become haughty from having become familiar with the celestial chariot and with workings of the heavenly beings.
Yeah, we certainly don't have a sense of Yechezkel, at least the shot of the text of Yechezkel going up to heaven. This is, Rashi's comment is to some extent influenced by Midrash and later Jewish tradition. But the sense is that he's called Son of Man so that he doesn't get cocky, basically. Just because you behold these visions and you are raised up somewhat by this, you just don't see yourself as that remarkable. And, not exactly the pshat, but very much as Greenberg, Fishbane, everyone comments that it is to make a distinction between God and the human being. And now, kind of an interesting commentary from a Barbanel, which touches on what you mentioned earlier, Yehudi. Go ahead, Carol.
The first question is, why does God call Yechezkel in most of his prophecies Son of Man, mortal, which he does not call any other prophet? And it is known that each one of the prophets was a human being. So why does God specifically relate to Yechezkel this way? It is known that this name is not derogatory, nor is it praise. So therefore, why is he addressed by the designation Son of Man?
Yeah, so a Barbanel always begins his commentaries with questions, and then he proceeds to answer them. Wait, sorry, I keep making this again. So basically, he's acknowledging this is a neutral term. He understands that it is simply mortal. But why is it used specifically for Yechezkel and not for the other prophets? And Barbanel has a rather interesting explanation. Go ahead.
In my opinion, because Yechezkel was exiled from the Holy Land, went out from there, and was removed from there, as I explained above, he is addressed Son of Adam, as the first human being was exiled from Gan Eden. So Yechezkel was exiled from Yerushalayim and from the temple where he was Kohen. Just as Adam was saddened that his descendants were wiped away and ended by confusion.
I'm not sure of this word here. I don't have my Jastro here at home. The Hebrew is Uchemosh Adam nit atzevim banav shehershiu b'maaseihem. Oh wait, I didn't totally translate this. I apologize. Um, Sorry, and just as I did this too quickly, and just as the first man, Adam, was saddened with his descendants that they corrupted their ways or they engaged in evil deeds, so
ככה יחזקאל.
Kacha Yechezkel nitatsev im bnei Yehuda v'anshe Yerushalayim. So Yechezkel was saddened with the people of Yehuda and the men of Jerusalem. Shahayu lefanav kivnei nevi'im. They were like the sons of prophets.
That's as far-fetched as you could get.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But again, this is a Barbanel's.
Sometimes he's right on political matters. He usually is.
Yeah.
But when he gets into spiritual matters, he's out of his depth. And this
he's going on a different wavelength. Uchemosh Adam kol banav safu tamu min. I'm not sure whether it's bilhut,
alahut, which means confounded, all messed up.
Okay, so I did translate it correctly here by confusion, confounded, because like lo
confusion is fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Like that's what I thought. Okay. So they were wiped away. I apologize for the missing section.
No, it's good. None of us are confused. We got this straight.
Yeah. Until they were swept away in the waters of the flood. Go ahead. So were the people of Yehuda.
The people of Yechezkel wiped away and ended in exile. And just as there remained of all humanity one person from whom the world was reestablished, so there remained of the people of Yehuda a surviving remnant, and from the house of David a root from the stock of Jesse, from which the crown will return to its glory, with God's returning the returnees of Zion. Because of these similarities and the others that I have not mentioned, Yechezkel is called Ben Adam. Thus is resolved the first question.
So for a Barbanel, a little fanciful. He's called Ben Adam because he has similar experiences to Adam. Interesting. Okay, however, there's a little bit more to this Ben Adam because in later Jewish history, it's going to take on another significance. We don't have to go into all of this, but right here it says in later periods.
In later periods, the term will take on a messianic tone, such as Enoch 46, 1-3, and 48, 2-7. At that place, I saw.
Okay, before, just so you know, there are a number of books of Chanoch, of Enoch, based on the character was mentioned in Bereshit. The Chanoch enenu ki lakachoto Elohim. And Enoch was no more because God took him. Not a lot of information there. So there were a number of books that focused on this character of Enoch. The first book of Enoch is a very complicated work, actually probably made up of 5 different sections. The latest book of Enoch was much more dealing with early Jewish mysticism. But here, we're beginning, the book of Enoch is part of the Apocrypha, not the Apocrypha, excuse me, the Pseudepigrapha is important for seeing how many Jewish concepts were being developed and growing. And so we're learning a lot about Judaism really between the end of the biblical period through into the Talmudic period, and also to see where some of the influences on Christianity may have come. So this notion of Ben Adam as kind of a messianic figure, here's a major presentation of that.
Do you have any attempt to make what the pshat of this was? I mean, we had now, because that's several interpretations, which are certainly not pshat. So then what is the pshat? Why is it that only Yechezkel and Daniel have this kind of address towards them? and summoned by that kind of a term.
Yeah,
Is it
I would agree that with Rashi, with Fishbane, Greenberg, that the term mortal, Ben Adam, is really focusing on the earthiness of Yechezkel. That he opens up with this incredible vision, but still he's mortal.
That was the only portion I see on the page. I'm assuming you're showing the Torah page that
I got it from
actually tries to
Safaria.
deal with this, and says what it means. They're both writing in Aramaic and living under an Aramaic type of setup. And in Aramaic, the term just as preserves something we still say today. An ordinary person is called a barnash.
Barnash,
Okay.
yeah.
And what you're really saying isn't so much, in other words, when push comes to shove, you're an ordinary person. Prophets are ordinary people until basically they're summoned. I mean, after all, almost goes around saying that, I know up to now I've been in agribusiness and now I'm obviously in spiritual business, but the bottom line is that, Cheskel, I think, might be called that because it's from the priestly aristocracy.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably thinks of himself as a pretty important person, which even in Galut, I'm sure they were. And it's sort of cool when we learned that people are always coming to him for consultations.
So, he was, and I think there is the sense that a prophet is, that they in the Book of Kings, they make the term Isha Elohim, man of God, with angel. And, I think they're going back already in the biblical period, you have a little bit of confusion about individuals, angels, God, and I think Yechezkel is being told in no uncertain terms that don't be full of yourself. You are a mortal being. And but so let's go on here. Already, by the time you get to the book of Daniel to some extent, but more so, and of course, they're all building on Chanoch and the New Testament. They're all building on Daniel. You have this sense of the term Ben Adam as being a little bit more. So go ahead, Carol. We just want to get a taste of it.
At that place, I saw the one to whom belongs the time before time, and his head was white like wool, and there was with him another individual whose face was like that of a human being. His countenance was full of grace, like that of one among the holy angels. And I asked the one from among the angels, "Who is this? And from whence is he who is going as the prototype of the before time?" And he answered me and said to me, "This is the Son of Man, to whom belongs righteousness, and with whom righteousness dwells."
Yeah, so it's, who's this with God that is like almost on par with him? The Son of Man. And again, messianic figure to whom belong righteousness and with whom righteousness dwells. And go on a little bit more.
At that hour, that Son of Man was given a name in the presence of the Lord of the spirits, the before time, even before the creation of the sun and the moon, before the creation of the stars. He was given a name in the presence of the Lord of the spirits.
Yeah, that's just the language of Chanoch talking about God. Go on.
He's
talking about the character of the Son of God, a man. Go on.
He will become a staff for the righteous ones. He is the light of the Gentiles, and he will become the hope of those who are sick in their hearts. All those who dwell upon the earth shall fall and worship before him. They shall glorify, bless, and sing the name of the Lord of the spirits. For this purpose he became the chosen one. He was concealed in the presence of the Lord of the spirits, the creation of the world, and for eternity.
Yeah, so this notion of the Messiah being prepared before the creation of the world, that already appears in rabbinic literature. And it's probably from Jewish tradition that also they get the notion in the Gospel of John. The three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, see Matthew uses the term Son of Man, but there Jesus is more than a man, and he's, a messianic figure, but it's really in the Gospel of John where they begin to move into believing Jesus is God, or is co-equal with God. The gospel begins, in the beginning, the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then a few verses later, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So the notion of the preexistence of the Messiah being prepared before creation, that's very much within Judaism, picked up by Christianity. So that's this term Ben Adam, which has just captured people's imagination. Even though, it simply means mortal, but it does stand out because Yehudi, as Yehudi said, and as we just don't see it in any other prophet. It's being used to refer to Yechezkel, so it kind of does stand out. Now, one other element. Let's see, where is that? All right. One other footnote here. Yeah, there's just a continuation here. Jesus is called Son of Man in Matthew. And the idea that, okay. Anyway, read the comment by Fishbane here.
Ezekiel frequently dramatizes oracles through symbolic actions. The pattern of act, inquiry, explanation is common.
Yeah, so one thing that really stands out in Yechezkel are all the actions, the symbolic actions that he takes. So let's go back to Yechezkel here. As we move into the second chapter, chapter 4, and we can see some of the signs that Yechezkel is given. Now remember, at this time, Yechezkel is, of course, in exile with the exiles, and this is before the actual destruction of the temple. So who would like to continue reading here, beginning of chapter 4?
I can.
Thank you, Ricky.
Ricky's there.
And you, O mortal, take a brick and put it in front of you, and incise on it a city, Jerusalem. Set up a siege against it, and build towers against it, and cast a mound against it, pitch camps against it, and bring up battering rams round about it. Then take an iron plate and place it as an iron wall between yourself and the city, and you can set your face against it. Thus it shall be under siege, you shall besiege it. This shall be an omen for the house of Israel.
Okay, so here's one. He didn't have Legos, but he used a brick and an iron plate, showing that God is turning against the city of Yerushalayim. Go on.
Then lie on your left side, and let it bear the punishment of the house of Israel. For as many days as you lie on it, you shall bear their punishment. For I impose upon you 390 days, corresponding to the number of the years of their punishment. And so you shall bear the punishment for the house of Israel. When you have completed these, you shall lie another 40 days on your right side, and bear the punishment of the house of Judah. I impose on you 1 day for each year. Then with bared arm, set your face toward besiege Jerusalem and prophesy against it. Now I put cords upon you so that you cannot turn from side to side until you complete your days of siege.
So he's not only using models, but he's got to use his own body, and then go on.
Further, take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and emmer. Put them into one vessel and bake them into bread. Eat it as many days as you lie on your side, 390. The food that you eat shall be by weight, 20 shekels a day. This you shall eat in the space of a day, and you shall drink water by measure. Drink 1/6 of a hin in the space of a day.
Yeah, and it goes on to describe that, but also here we go. Um, this is another sign, is a little less pleasant.
Eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes, Nick. So said the Lord. Shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them? Then I said, O Lord God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself or was torn by beasts from my youth until now, nor has foul flesh entered my mouth. He answered me, See, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that.
Wow, what a leniency.
Yeah.
But here all these symbolic actions, very, very powerful. Um, and of course, there's a whole message to all of this. So the idea of setting up a sign is, wait a minute here. What happened?
Your bread.
Yeah, here we go. The idea of taking two sticks and holding them together, that's not so bad actually compared to some of the other things, lying on one side and lying on the other. It's pretty but he's a very dramatic guy. These actions very, very powerful. Okay. And then this other notion of putting them together. Let me go by here. Join them together one to one for you as one stick so that they become one in your hand. By the way, we really have to look back at the Hebrew here. Still first verse. Vayidvar Adonai elai lemor, v'ata ben adam, kach lecha eitz echad, וכתוב עליו ליהודה ולבני ישראל חבריו, ולקח עץ אחד, וכתוב עליו ליוסף עץ אפרים וכל בית ישראל חבריו, וקרב אותם אחד אל אחד לך לעץ אחד, והיו לאחדים בידיך. So there's numerous appearances of the word echad. Some of them a little unusual. So it's really, he's talking about unity, the unity of the people. And boy, oh boy, does he capture it in his language. And also, it should be pointed out, like I said, the predecessor, or the first part of the chapter, is the story of the dry bones. And within the story of the dry bones, what happens to the bones? They attach themselves one to the other. And it's the same thing here. The sticks are being attached, so there are a lot of verbal similarities between Yechezkel. But now an interesting little midrash emphasizing this idea of unity from Bereshit Rabbah. Ricky, do you want to go on here?
The rabbis say, he commanded them regarding dissension. He said to them, you shall all...
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't copy here. This is actually from next week's parasha. Vayikra Yaakov el banav. Yaakov gathers all of his sons to give them, final words. And what is the purpose? And there are a number of midrashim on what Yaakov is doing. But here, the rabbis say,
he commanded them regarding dissension. He said to them, you shall all be one assembly. That is what is written. You, son of man, take for you one piece of wood and write on it. For Yehuda and for the children of Israel, his companions. It is written, his companion. The children of Israel become a single group. Prepare yourselves for redemption. What is written thereafter? I will render you one nation.
Yeah, as part of God's, because this chapter is very much seen as a messianic vision. And he's also picking up on the text that it's written chaser, chaverav, without the yud. So it's a chaverokativ. So it's written as if it were the word chavero as opposed to chaverav. So it's your companion, one person. And the idea of Yisrael forming aguda achat, one gathering, of course, That's part of the words of the High Holy Day liturgy in the V'chein paragraphs that follow, that are part of the Kedusha on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. V'yasu chulam aguda achat. They shall all make one gathering. And that's also one of the interpretation. The idea of unity was very, very important. Probably because one of the great sins that the rabbis saw in the destruction of the Second Temple was the hatred, the divisions among the Jewish community. And so even one interpretation of the lulav and the etrog is the different parts of the lulav and the etrog represent different people, different kinds of people, and nonetheless, we bring them together and
Different
hold them
kinds of
together.
Jews, not different kinds of people.
Right, different kinds of Jews. So the notion of unity is very powerful in this chapter, and hence, it's a very powerful messianic character in later Judaism. Let's at least read the rest of this haftarah.
And when your fellow countrymen say to you, do tell us what meaning these have for you, speak to them. This said Lord Hashem, see, I am going to take the stick of Yosef, which is Ephraim's hand, and the tribes of Israel who are associated with him, and join it to it with the stick of Yehuda, and will turn them into one stick, so that they shall be one in my hand, and let the sticks on which you write be in your hand before their eyes. And speak to them. Thus said Lord Hashem, see, I am going to take the Israelites from among the nations where they have gone, and gather them from all sides, and bring them to their soil. I will turn them into one nation in the land, in the mountains of Israel, and one king shall serve for all of them as king. You shall no more be two nations, nor again be divided into two kingdoms anymore.
Yeah, again, you have echad being emphasized a little bit here. So they're talking about unity. And no more two nations. And this is also a little bit of a change, as the commentators point out. Instead of od lo, has not yet happened, but this is lo od, no more shall this be. So it's again takes on a future characteristic, and therefore is interpreted that way by the Mefarshim as in the messianic terms. Go ahead.
They shall no more be polluted by their idols and by their loathsome things and by all their transgressions. But I will deliver them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I will purify them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God.
Yeah, very powerful statement that we have elsewhere in the Bible. Vayuli la'am, vani eheyeh lahem lelohim. But of course, this is also the Kohen speaking, that v'tiharti otam, and I will purify them. And there are other places in Yechezkel about the people having to be purified before God's presence can once again be part of them. And then what clearly becomes a messianic hope, certainly in the later Jewish tradition.
My servant David shall be the king over them, and one shepherd shall be for all of them, and they shall follow my rules and my laws. They shall carefully observe them, so they shall dwell on the land that I gave to my servant, to Yaakov, in which your ancestors dwelt. They shall dwell on it, they and their children's children eternally. And David, my servant, shall be their chief eternally. I will make for them.
Okay, so here once again the notion of the Davidic dynasty that will be restored. Also very priestly, that they shall follow my rules and my laws. They shall carefully observe them. Very much, if you, the commentators point out the similarity to the rules and the blessings at the end of Sefer Vayikra. Here, of course, we're talking about a king. And there may also be a little bit of a play on taking the sticks in one hand. Stick is eitz here, but eitz often is used as a symbol for many things. Stick can also be called makel, which can also be a staff, and it can also be a scepter. So it may very well also be hinting, this is what Greenberg mentions, that it may also be hinting at the sense of kingship. And then finally, the question about David once again being king, a very interesting midrash that comes from the Talmud.
Rabbi Yehuda says, Rob says, Blessed Holy One is destined to establish another David, as it is stated, and they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will establish for them.
Yeah, so Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav is taking this very literally, that there will be another David who will rise. But not everybody agrees with that. Go on.
It is not stated, I established, but I will establish. Rav Papa said to Abaye, it isn't it written, and my servant David shall be their prince forever, like an emperor and a viceroy?
Yeah, so it's like there are going to be two. It's just David, but there's going to be another one who's going to be like the viceroy. They're going to rule in tandem. And the notion of two messiahs develops in Judaism. So, for example, you have Mashiach ben David, the Messiah from the house of David, who will restore the kingship and the government, etc., etc., etc. But then you also have a Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah from the house of Joseph, who actually will be killed in a final apocalyptic battle. And you in the Dead Sea Scrolls, you have the notion of a kingly Messiah and a priestly Messiah. So that, again, the notion of Messiah in the Bible, or I should say in later Jewish tradition, develops along many, many different lines. Certainly in Christianity, but even within Judaism, you have some unusual ideas. So this is already, not Dead Sea Scrolls. This is later. This is in the Talmud. So I just wanted to bring that out. So let's, and then a beautiful ending to the Haftarah.
I will make for them a covenant of well-being, an eternal covenant it shall be with them. And I will set them and make them numerous, and I will set my sanctuary in their midst eternally. My tabernacle shall be over them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the nations shall know that I, Hashem, sanctify Israel by my sanctuaries being in their midst eternally.
Okay, now, again, very priestly language. Biot mikdashi b'tocham le'olam. My sanctuary will be in their midst eternally. We have vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in your midst. And much of the concern about tumah v'tohara, ritual purity and impurity, is how do we make the Israelite community fit for God's holy presence? How do we make sure the mikdash is holy? But there's something else that happens here, which is kind of interesting, because God says that God will set the sanctuary in their midst eternally. But what else does he say right after that? Read the section again, Ricky.
Oh, we'll make them from the beginning?
Yeah.
I will make for them a covenant of well-being, an eternal covenant it shall be with them. And I will set them and make them numerous, and I will set my sanctuary in their midst eternally. My tabernacle shall be over them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people.
Now, where's the tabernacle here?
Over them.
Over them, yeah. So he's taking the image. It used to be the mikdash was the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was in their midst, certainly in the wilderness. And then when we're talking about mikdash, probably much more the temple. But there's still the notion of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, V'haya Mishkani Aleim, the Mishkan suddenly becomes more of a spiritual reality that guards them and protects them. And that, will be developed in different ways in later Jewish tradition. We think of Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, spread over us your tabernacle of peace, as we used to translate. But it's really Sukkah, and that's what the tabernacle really is. It's a tent. Sukkah. So all of this prophecy, on one hand, connecting to the Torah portion, it's the reconciliation of the brothers. So it's the reconciliation, God willing, of the tribes in the Messianic era. But it's part of a whole section that becomes part of a Messianic prophecy, or it's understood as a Messianic prophecy. Again, the first half of this chapter was the Valley of the Dry Bones. And actually, the chapter that follows this is dealing with the conflict of Gog and Magog, kind of an apocalyptic battle. God has to destroy his enemies. But all this gave rise to many, many different kinds of thoughts about what is the Messianic era, what is the Messiah, and why it's such kind of an open question in Jewish tradition about how we understand the Messiah and future days. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, are we supposed to equate when it comes to the talk of two messiahs in the house that they came from, David with Yosef? Yosef was a very colorful person, but in holiness, do you think there's an equivalency to make between him and David?
Well,
Or
you have to take a look at the characters in the Bible and the way they're described in the Bible, which not only was Yosef a colorful character, but David most definitely was as well.
Yeah.
And neither of them are necessarily the most ideal figures. But as we move into post-biblical Judaism, they become archetypes. It's less the biblical character, him or herself, and what they represent. So even Yosef is called the tzaddik, the righteous one. And he's a symbol of righteousness. He rejected the advances of Eshet Potiphar, of Potiphar's wife. So, and we think of him also as Yisrael. He's the progenitor of our nation. Although when he was Yaakov, he was not such a nice guy.
Right.
He was definitely a heel.
Mhm.
And he only later becomes Yisrael. And King David, of course, is the one who establishes Yerushalayim as the political and religious capital of the Israelite people, and then for subsequent for the Jewish people. But not a wonderful guy, We think of how he got Bathsheba, and so our character, well, even Avraham and Yitzchak. Avraham is really, an outstanding character, but twice he passes off his wife as his sister so that he'll benefit. So, unlike Christianity, as some commentator once remarked, Judaism doesn't have bloodless plaster saints. It is very real human beings.
Mhm.
And, sometimes it's not so much the character as what the character comes to mean within the tradition and what the character represents. And we know there's, sometimes with the very rosy glasses that we look back on some of these people. And it happens in modern times too. I mean, we look back at, Ben Gurion, the founding prime minister, this gray-haired, peaceful guy. But frankly, he was a pretty harsh character. my Hebrew teacher, Alava Shalom, who was in the Irgun, he always said that they had Begin and Ben Gurion mixed up. You know, on the outside, Ben Gurion was soft and warm and friendly. On the inside, he was tough as nails. And Begin, on the outside, was this tough terrorist. On the inside, he was a marshmallow. And he was not surprised that we made peace with Egypt under Begin. Yeah, it may have been pushed a little bit by Dayan, just as he was later pushed by Ariel Sharon into Lebanon. But, you know, we look at these characters. I mean, even someone like Shimon Peres, in many ways, really a remarkable individual. But part of the love everyone has for Peres was the fact that he was the last man left standing. You know, he never really, barely was able to make it the prime minister. He was never that popular. As wonderful as he was, and I have a great deal of respect for Peres and was very much a fan of his, but, you know, he never was not necessarily beloved by the Israelis.
But that's a natural trait of human nature.
Yeah.
But that's why they say eulogies are, you know, always wonderful. You know?
Yeah. You know, except for what's his name's eulogy for Julius Caesar. The good that men do lives after them. The evil is often interred with their bones. You know, there we go. But it's like now we'll see all the different things about Jimmy Carter, who in many ways was a wonderful human being. Certainly a lot of what he did with his life was really quite beautiful. But for the Jewish community, not so much. You know, he may have shepherded the peace accords, although I think it's much more the courage of Sadat, who paid the price, and the willingness of Begin more than Carter's influence. But afterwards, he became, you know, not just pro-Palestinian, but, you know, almost totally anti-Israel. And so, and by the way, not even Americans look back at him with tremendous fondness. You know, he was not necessarily the most effective of presidents, although, you know, now people are starting to say, well, you know, look what he did for NASA, you know. So I'm sure he accomplished a lot, but, you know, he was also not silent when he left the presidency, and he was quite open to criticizing those who came after him. And not everyone appreciated his forthrightness. So, yeah. But there you have it. Powerful, inspiring haftarah from a very unusual and interesting prophet.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Certainly. Have Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Stay warm. It's
Yeah.
probably not too late to say Happy New Year. Secular New Year.
Hope all you have a good year.
We'll be meeting throughout February.
Okay.
Throughout January, sorry. Probably throughout February too, but definitely January.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.